back and welcome to a video where I discuss witch books because it is the season for it. I have realised that I love witch romance books or cozy witch books, whichever you want to call it, but I'm very picky when it comes to the genre. So here are a few that I've read. Recommend me any that you have on your TBR or that you've read as well, because I am in need of recommendations. But let's get into my very quick list. The first one is Witch Please, where Danica, our protagonist, has sworn off relationships after getting out of a very rocky one recently. However, she ends up falling for this guy who runs the town bakery. This is also set in a small town, which is a setting that I adore, and it has a coven, which is like a found family of female witches. But in this one, unfortunately, the coven can't talk about witchery and magic outside of other magic users. So when it came to these characters forming a relationship together, I was like, it feels like you guys are lying to each other, or at least one is lying to the other. And if you can't get past that and tell them because an old crusty council has forbid you from talking about magic, then to me, that walks across the line of consent. Like, you're not able to talk to your partner about something massive about yourself. So to me, the relationship is not quite the truth. And apparently later on in this series, this is contested and magic is discussed, but it doesn't happen in book 1. It doesn't happen in book 2. I'm fairly sure it's book 3, but honestly, I got to book 2 and it was kind of driving me crazy in the narrative style. So I put it down and I'm not continuing the series. But I gave this 3 when I read it because I finished it in a day while I was sick. It was the perfect read to just snap up and get through. So it was fun, it was steamy, and honestly I love the bakery setting in the small town. Then I've got a book that I really enjoyed and I gave it 4 stars, and it is Payback's a Witch. This is about a witch who returns to her hometown after being away for a while. She's built a life for herself in Chicago, I think the major city nearby, but she's come back to her small town, again the small town, and she's realizing her connection to magic again now that she's returned. And while she's realizing this connection, she's also realizing that her ex has been dating her best friend and has also left her best friend in a state of disrepair. And now her best friend and this other girl, Talia, that Gareth, I think Gareth is his name, has wronged, the trio get together and form like a John Tucker Must Die alliance to get revenge against this guy who is an absolute turd. So I love a revenge plot with witches getting together to support each other. This is also a sapphic romance between our protagonist and, I think Talia is her name, the third party to their trio. And while they are going about this revenge plot, there is also a contest happening in the town that is linked to the 4 major family lines. And so whoever wins this contest gets accolades for their family. So they're like, well, let's take this guy down in front of everyone and ruin the accolades and reputation of his family like he's ruined our reputations and our lives, while also getting us the better reputation for competing in the contest for our families. So it's a romp, to be honest. I liked the world building for once. I think it was quite strong world building in here. I liked the contest and the history as well. I liked the dynamics between the characters. I think this was a great one compared to the other witchy ones I've read because of the detail and because of the conversations that were had. I like it when a conversation happens rather than miscommunication. So this is a great book for witchy vibes, great dynamics and conversations between characters, some steamy sapphic romance as well. It was just a great fun time, and I honestly wish I read it in October because it would fit the vibe perfectly. Then I read Witch You Gonna Do, which was a stupid, like very stupid, but I mean, very quick. I finished it, I think, also in a day and gave it 3 stars. And this one is about the family supposedly prodigy, but she actually has no magic and she runs all of their social media accounts. And one day she runs across this guy again and she considers him an enemy, I think because they've had a few failed dates and he's made her feel, I don't know, humiliated, but not because he intended to. So I think the enemies to lovers trope is a bit of a joke, or a huge joke in this book. I don't like it at all. And some of the plot reasons in here behind his character were a little underdeveloped and ultimately dumb, but I liked their relationship. It was very steamy, it was kind of cute and sweet at times as well. So it was one that I wanted to see more of the magic system developed, but it held that back in favor of the romance and the smut. And to me, I need both of those things, like romance and smut, and also the world building and the character development. Put it all together in a mixing pot, or a cauldron if you will, I guess, and see what happens after that. This one lacked the world building and the development for me. So it's not a new favorite, and thankfully, because I borrowed it from my library, I could just return it and not worry about it anymore. Then we had another one that was kind of dumb, but I think if you go into this subgenre of witchy romance books, you want them to be not too serious anyway. I still want a little bit of that seriousness, because if I don't have that, then it yeets me out of the story. Like, I need to feel immersed, and if it's dumb, then it kicks me out. So I read A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon, and this is about a girl who is supposed to again be a powerful witch, but doesn't really have the propensity of doing magic spells. Case in point, she stuffs the spell that she's doing up and accidentally summons this demon, and this demon is like the prince of demons. Of all demons she could have summoned. So in his last deal, he accidentally kept half of the human soul instead of sending it all back to hell. And so because she summoned him and doesn't want to do a deal with him, and he's got this bit of human soul in him, he starts to become humanized. So you've got that trope of a very like old figure that's, 1,000 years old or more, and then someone who's in their 20s falling for each other, but he's learning how to process his emotions and be human. So sometimes that trope can be funny and cute, other times it can just be overdone, and I found it overdone quite a few times in this book. Even some of the conversations between the main character and her friends were a lot. You could tell that it was a dialogue specifically written for a parodic romance book, rather than because someone would actually potentially say the things that they said. So again, that's why I said it was dumb. Ultimately though, it's a witchy romance book. I'm not reading it to change lives, I'm reading it to have fun. So it was fun, it did deliver that aspect, but I just wish it was a little bit more serious. And again, I'm no huge fan of that enemies to lovers trope. I prefer rivals to lovers. I like that tension, but I don't like them being enemies. And that's what these characters started out as. I can see why, because he's literally a demon, but it just didn't quite work for me. Again, I gave it 3 stars. It was a romp, but it's not one that I'm going to hold on to by any means. And then lastly, this one isn't necessarily like a witchy romance book, but it's still a witch book. It's an urban fantasy by Juno Dawson, and that is Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which is about a chosen one child that is prophesized. So already you're hitting those fantasy tropes that I love. Not so much romance, but fantasy for sure. There is a romance subplot in here though, which was nice to see. But this book follows Neve, and she is taking this person under her wing who is the minor that is accused of being the chosen one and is therefore in a lot of danger from the government. And this minor is like, well, I'm having like identity things occur. And this book is really the minority fighting against the bigoted majority. And so there is a lot of trans and non-binary discussion in here from a place of knowledge, obviously, because Juno Dawson is a trans woman. So it had hard conversations, and this one really pushed the envelope in a great way. I really love the narrative. I wish it became a bit more light though, because ultimately it feels like this got hung a bit by the plot, in that I found certain pieces of the ending undermined the story for me personally. So I won't be continuing with this one either. So a lot of the witchy books that I've got, I liked enough to read to the end, but they're not favorites. The closest one that I would probably get is Payback's a Witch, which I gave 4 stars. So again, if you have any recommendations for me, I want more witchy books. Please recommend them to me. Ideally more romance than fantasy, but I will take fantasy if you've got fantasy. So that is the end of this video, but thank you so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you down below in the comments, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.